I love doing productions and I always felt like I thrived, but it's that auditioning where you do give a lot of yourself into preparation and do it, and that feeling of like, did I get it? Did I not? Am I worthy? Am I not? Yeah, man. Thanks for doing this.
No, thank you. I really appreciate it. I love the new record. I was
Oh
actually,
man, yeah.
yeah, I was listening to it earlier. My favorite song, I think, is "Try Me."
Oh yeah, that's the soulful jam, man. I
Yeah, it's
feel
got
like
that guitar lick in it in the middle
yeah.
there. That's a cool song.
Appreciate that. Yeah. Yeah, that was like one of the oh man, I'm trying to think because the whole album was done very unorthodox. It was not like I had a set body of work going into it. And
Hmm.
when I worked with Walter, it was kind of like, let's just write the best songs we can. And I think a lot I was pulling from a lot of different inspiration.
Hmm.
And I think that song in particular probably was just maybe it's my Virginia roots and maybe it's just kind of how I grew up, but like
Hmm.
that old soul, like, I grew up really listening to like oldies music. And so like Sam Cooke and a lot of these old school guys, I would just kind of really study. And
Hmm.
yeah, if, you just never know what kind of you bring into new bodies of work, but
For sure. So you're from Arlington, Virginia? Is that what I read?
yeah, actually, funny you say Arlington. That's where I was born. I was born in Arlington, yeah, hospital.
Oh, wow.
So I didn't grow up there. Are you familiar with Virginia at all, or
Not
no?
really, to be honest. I recently
Yeah,
moved to Nashville, but I'm a Southern California guy. I was born
yeah,
and raised there.
Arlington, Richmond, that's all northern Virginia. So I
Okay.
guess yeah, that's kind of that's close enough to the neck of the woods, I guess, where I grew up. But then yeah, I kind of went off when all that musical theater started taking off when I was really young. So from like 7 to 15, I was just like traveling a bunch throughout all of the United States, just doing multiple productions and stuff. So that was kind of completely crazy childhood. But
Yeah, I can't even imagine. Well, just to back up, if you don't mind, like I'm just
yeah,
curious, like how did you get into music and in musicals? Were you raised in a musical household, or was it just something that your family
now
knew
that
that
I've
you're
done
good
a
at
little
right
more
away?
homework, my uncle, Hardy William Smith was a director, and he did a lot of he did Broadway productions as well. And I guess honestly, in my family tree, he's the only really one that kind of went really into the theatric side of things. I
Hmm.
have other parts of my family, I guess, that have been in gospel choirs or have done, played some instruments, but
Hmm.
no one really went for it in terms of just like this is like their main thing. So
Sure.
I took when I was young and growing up, I was taking piano lessons, and my sister had done a ballet production at the Kennedy Center. So that was like the first big production that I had seen on a large scale.
Hmm.
So when my next door neighbor came home one day, who we were really close with, it was just like one of those things where we're just like,
Yeah, you
you're friends
hung
with
out
your
with your
neighbors. Like,
neighbors,
yeah,
right?
you're
Yeah,
just friends with your
exactly.
neighbors. And she was like, oh, Asher, there's this crazy open call audition for the National Broadway tour of Beauty and the Beast. And she was just kind of explaining. She literally heard it in her car on the radio,
Okay. Yeah, they used to do those like casting
right?
calls, like
Yeah, the
come to the
casting call,
mall
come to
and
the beast. Well, it was
play.
kind of like that. It was they were doing a giant Disney was doing a giant casting call. At,
Wow.
Kennedy Center is very prestigious and it's like this big thing. So maybe the excitement of all of it was just like this sounds cool, and
Hmm.
maybe in my subconscious knowing my sister had done that ballet production and remember seeing it. And so you kind of just, what do you know at 6 years old, right?
Yeah, not a lot.
Not a lot. So that was for me, it was just like, it just the excitement I think sounded. So I think everyone was a little bit reluctant to take me, but I was truly the one that was pushing my family. Mom, come on, take me. I want to go on this thing. So she did. She did, and I went on it, and there was like, a huge casting call of kids like in tuxedos and all like, it was like the full gamut of hundreds of kids there showing up, and I was
Uh-huh.
in this like jean shorts, missing a couple teeth, and like just totally out of my league. Like, what the heck am I doing here? But I kept getting call back, call back, call back, and it was all like it was just like this big build up process, and then like I met finally with the whole heads of production at the very end, and I remember they pushed me so hard. I haven't even told this to really many people, but like in the room, you have to sing a song, you do some lines, but it's like this big room, and like like when you think of a casting room, it's a small room, but this was a big, big room, and they're just like drilling me, drilling me, drilling me. And I think I was almost on the verge of tears because I was just like, what is going on? But I'm going to do what you're asking of me.
Sure.
And then at the very end, they kind of stop and they're like, that's when they offered me the role. And they did it on the spot. And it was just kind of like everything past that day was just kind of surreal. You know, it
Mhm.
was just like my whole life completely shifted from, very normal, simple, and to just like, okay, now I'm training for this role. Now I'm going on a 18 city, national tour, and let's ride this train. Let's ride it
Mhm.
as long as we could. So for me, I genuinely thought, oh man, this is my only shot. So I'm gonna just go for this. And so I did. I ended up doing it, the production for 2.5 years. I still to this day, I think it was the longest running trip. And I rode that train as long as I could, and then yeah, so and then it just kind of spilled out, and I got representation at the end of that, and pushed me to New York City, and then that's when I started auditioning for other roles, and just it's kind of snowballed from there.
Wow. Like, I mean, I have a 6-year-old son, so I'm trying to think
Trying to
like
imagine, right? What?
yeah, yeah, like what that would be like. Not only that is like it's so cool that you have that vivid memory. So like I'm also thinking like that's awesome. Like maybe he will have like remember all like I'm trying to think back to when I'm 6, but I'm
For
like,
sure. No, yeah, like there's obviously like wishy-washy thoughts, but like you're right,
sure.
there are things in our life that kind of play a big role, and some of these things were so like ingrained in my memory of like this is not normal. Whatever you're
Right.
doing right now is not normal. And then, just even like I remember finally like, talking with the stage director of like, when am I ready? And I'm like, no, man, I like, it's like one of those coach let me in thing. Like, no,
Yeah.
I'm ready, let me in. Like, you get your shot. And so he finally, when they felt like after all the rehearsals and everything, you're ready, and you get that first time. And I think for me, maybe it was like, and I hate to relate this to like a drug, but like the first taste of a drug, like the high was just so high, and
Right.
it was just like, what is this? And I think that's when I was just hooked. I was literally for the rest of my, even up till now, I've done so many different facets of the entertainment
Hmm.
industry, but it's been so fun because it's always honing some creative aspect and allowing you to just go beyond what is the norm. And I
Hmm.
think that's why I love creativity, and I try to infuse it in all facets of my life, but it's just trying to break boundaries and trying to push yourself as far as you can in different elements, and making yourself uncomfortable, and I think that's why people take on different roles and they want challenges. And so for me, it's just always just been a blessing to be in that position, but also continue to try to take it as far as I can.
Hmm. It's at
So,
least they gave you the. I was thinking of this too. Like at least they gave you the role on the spot, right? I mean, especially after. I wonder if they were grilling you to see if you could handle it, like
oh,
in a big.
totally.
Because they're like, you're
Yeah,
probably
well,
one of the
that's
youngest people there. Yeah, and if they're yelling at other people, you might be like, ah. Not only that, to be like, okay, you got it, instead of you going home like
Oh my God,
defeated.
yeah, that would have been worse, right? Like me that, and honestly, I think that's what I hate most about, and I can even use that word because I strongly feel so against the feeling of just the auditioning process,
Hmm.
to people like that, whether it's in music, acting. Like I love doing productions and I always felt like I thrived, but it's that auditioning where you do give a lot of yourself into preparation and do it, and that feeling of like, did I get it? Did I not? Am I worthy? Am I not? And I don't miss that really. I don't miss that feeling at all of just like walking into a room, having somebody size you up, and it kind of did. I think it played with my mind later on in life. In the early part, I guess I had a lucky streak where I luckily didn't have to go through so much of that, where I was actually just working so much as a kid. But as I
Hmm.
got older, it was, you get more challenging roles, you get more this, so you do get a lot of more back and forth, of just that, like a lot. It's a waiting game. A lot of it is like I even remember when I did Fame, for the MGM film and stuff. Like
Hmm.
it was just like I remember at one time some like another kid had they offered it to somebody else, and
Oh,
that was like the worst
really?
part. Like, after so many callbacks and chemistry reads and everything, and then you find out, oh no, they gave it to somebody else. And that moment, so it's like, and it like we like, and so I don't know. For me, it was just, you go through it, and it makes you stronger as a person. It does. And then I feel like now looking back, and if I'm to ever go through that process more again, because you still have challenges and bumps through everything you do. I feel like I look at it a little bit different now, that it's like I look at what can I bring to the table? what can I
Mhm.
add? How can I add value? And so instead of me feeling like less than when I go into a room, or like trying to go into, like a lot of guys do that. They'll go and, I could walk into a casting room tomorrow and see 20, 30 other guys that look just like me,
Right.
maybe sing close enough, like, and you're constantly measuring yourself up to these people. And it can play with your psyche a little bit. And I
Oh,
think that,
yeah, I can't
but
even
now that it's like,
imagine.
I feel like it's just, I don't know, maybe it's just a lot of the life journey and life experiences that I've had to go through, that I do look at it differently now. So I don't really like, the competition is competition. That's never going to change, but it's
Mhm.
how you look at yourself in the process. And I feel like I've gotten a lot better at just like saying like, if it's meant to be, if it is, if it's not, because it's like everything you do does take you down a different road, and some
Mhm.
things aren't meant for you, and some things don't make you grow. So I try to find a positive spin on everything, and just look at it as like, there's this overall growth for me in my journey and as an artist, and what's going to come my way is going to be the right things. And if it doesn't, it's not meant to be.
Yeah, that's a great attitude to have. I mean, because you obviously have to have some thick skin to be in any facet of this industry. I mean, to be able to hear a million no's before somebody
Oh yeah.
goes, "Yeah, you're good enough," or we. But it's not even that you're good enough. It's more like it's so subjective, right? I mean,
I
you're in a
know.
room with all the people who have similar aspects of you, and then it's, well,
But
this guy did this one little thing a little bit differently, so we're gonna go with it.
And it's
Yeah.
also too, it could be a million other things you're not even thinking about. They could be literally just thinking, I want to see a guy with this color hair, with this color eye, with this
Right.
type of build, with this type of, and in your mind, you're thinking, oh, they didn't think I did good enough, or I wasn't prepared. But really, that's why you have to let all that go. You have to let
Hmm.
all that go and know that there are some things in mind that it's beyond your control.
Sure.
You can't control those things. So you just, for really, I think you have, even if it's auditioning and you're taking the time out to prepare for something, just know that you're always sharpening your skill regardless of the outcome.
Hmm.
So every time even you're preparing for something, that's not a lost cause. You've taken the time to prepare and dive yourself and do it. So if you just look at everything you do as an opportunity to improve your skills, you'll always be in the win.
Hmm. I
you
love
know
that.
yeah.
With obviously you did Broadway for a while, and you did the shows, and when that kind of came to an end, or like, did you end up going back to school, or was this always something like from Broadway you just kind of continued to move on to different jobs and roles?
I think it kind of just felt like a natural progression, because I didn't necessarily, and even I feel like even looking back, it felt like it happened. Everything was happening kind of so fast that I didn't even have time, or my mom, or whoever's working with me at that time, to say, no, this is the plan for your career. This is where we think you should go.
Hmm.
It just felt natural. It just felt
Okay.
where I'm at that place was where I should be. And also it felt like things were very much aligned in terms of the roles. I remember even when I was doing Beauty and the Beast, I remember a lot of the castmates would come to me and say, Asher, you're going to be an amazing Oliver one day. I didn't even know really much about the production of Oliver or whatnot or
Uh-huh.
whatever. And eventually I got my chance to audition for it, and I did play Oliver. But like,
That's awesome.
it's like, it's cool to think of like how sometimes these roles come at a certain time, and they're right. I ended up doing a production, actually, Prince and the
Hmm.
Pauper, and I ended up playing, who Cameron Bowen was actually the opposite of me, and he was like Mr. Broadway kid. He was just doing, him and his sister were working a ton, and I remember he got the Pauper, and then like I had the chance to like go in and go for the role for the Prince, but I was like thinking, could this possibly be that I'm going to get to play on a high level production with my best friend at the time? And because they saw our chemistry was like beyond what anybody, we were just laughing in the audition room, like it was just like, these two have to do something together. But like, I just take every little moment of all of my trajectory as a kid, was just like, somehow it just felt like it was just, everything was at the right time, the right
Hmm.
place, right time. And I
Okay.
was supposed to be in New York, but now look, everything evolved too, because I went to two of the performing arts schools in New York. I went to the professional performing arts school, which, there's a big debate, right, on which one is the fame school. And I also went to
Okay.
the professional children's school. Some would say that the Professional Performing Arts School is the fame school, and others would say the Professional Children's School. I personally think that the PPAS was the original one, because even the layout of it, it's just like it's a mock. It's like it's and also a lot of the people like Britney Spears and huge names that all used to went to this school. And what I loved about these schools was they honed young talent in a way that nurtured their gifts and allowed them to pursue their dreams.
Mhm. Oh,
Because
that's awesome.
you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
Yeah.
not how many 12-year, like I was like I'd have a professional horseback rider next to me, or a professional fencer, or someone doing the giant, some ballet thing, and
So there's that
everyone.
big of a scope. Wow, that's
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah,
I didn't
yeah.
realize
It's
that.
like basically what we call it just professional, like anything you're doing on a high level as a
Mhm.
kid. That's why it was such a great school for me, because I was working a lot. And so if I needed to go to an audition or I had a job, I would just tell my teachers, hey, I got something at 23rd Street and I got to be there. Great. Just get your homework done and get in what
Right.
you get done. So they were so open and so flexible and so nurturing of kids that were really at a young age chasing that. And so I
Mhm.
love that, because if you think about like modern day school systems, any path that one takes, it should be nurturing whatever that dream is.
Right.
And a lot of people don't necessarily get that until college or whatever. So for me, it was awesome to have that training, because I'd go to a math science, but then I'd have acting, I'd have piano, I'd have improv, I'd have all these different things that, again, we're just honing different gifts. And it was just awesome, man. I think it was just a great experience. And so New York was really a lot of training, a lot of that, and a lot of exploration of the theater arts. And I was getting into TV, a little bit of TV, a lot of print and commercials and television, whatever. So that was a
Mhm.
lot of New York. And then when I finally moved out to LA to pursue it on a higher level, I think that's when it kind of, again, just
Just kept
new things snowballed when you reach the LA scheme. But
right, right. When did you, or have you always wrote songs? Was that something that you've done?
no, so when I was my first real like signing to a label was when I was 19 to Warner Brothers,
Mhm.
because all the bands were kind of putting together a typical boy band.
Oh,
and
sure.
and Warner Brothers was that this was their band.
Their swing, yeah.
They're swinging at it. And so I was going at my freshman year, like literally I was in my first semester of college, and I got a call because I was taking music lessons with Eric Vitro, who's a very well-known vocal coach,
Yeah, I know who he
Ariana
is.
Grande, all these people. So
Uh-huh.
I was still coaching with him, and Tommy Page, who was the A&R at the time, was looking for a front man, and he called Eric Vitro and was saying, "Hey, I'm looking for this front man to be in a band." And so I got the call, and I was like, "Oh, this sounds interesting, but I got to hear the music. I got to meet the guys. I got to see if this is something that I would even really want to do." But lo and
Mhm.
behold, I really did. I liked the music that they were kind of making. When I say this, they were bringing on the Carity Guardi, they were bringing on the Matrix, they were bringing on Diane Warren, like huge songwriters to write the
Yeah.
music for the band. There was these other guys, the Twin in Sweden. So it was like really amazing people we got to work with. But I will say in the very beginning, we did not know. No one wrote the music. It was all done by professionals
Yeah.
and stuff. So
I mean,
when I
that's how a lot of those, I mean,
that's
it was
how,
like a
yeah,
performance act. I mean,
performance act.
really.
They brought on the camps. They were flying me to Sweden to record. It was awesome. It was a Johnny Wright tour was the first tour we went on, and yeah, I guess that was my first real recording contract experience. But when I left the band, um, I I just felt like, I don't know, I had more in me that I needed to share and to hone myself.
Mhm.
And so that's what I did. I think pretty much immediately out of the band. I also met my partner at that time, Diana, who's kind of like been my rock, and we've been together, and now we have had our first child. But
Yeah, I know,
that,
congratulations about that. I didn't see
that's a
that.
side subject. But yeah, we started this music label together called D Empire Entertainment. And so I think the first person I worked with under that was Ryan Tedder, who's the front man for
Wow, of One
One Republic.
Republic? Yeah.
And we wrote 2 songs together, and that was my first single out the gate as a solo artist. and I was technically, that was the first real song that I co-wrote with a big writer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I was like, oh, I'm now lending my pen a little bit of like, you know,
Right.
because I actually remember this. Ryan wrote the chorus on the spot. It was actually kind of crazy how fast he did it. He had the chords, he wrote the whole chorus, and then he's like, he left the verses open for me. And he said, Ash, I want you to write the verses. And I said, sure, no problem. So that was kind of fun to like take the challenge and say, you know, but it was kind of cool then too, because I was like, I wish I was more into actually writing. I don't think I was even interested enough in it at like in my early 20s.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say I started it, but I really didn't take a passion for it till my late 20s.
Okay.
But I would say I started the process in my early 20s of just working with James Fauntleroy and co-writing with Alon Leviton, who worked with me actually in the movie Fame. He was like my main go-to, and he was the one who was always saying, Asher, you got way more in you than you're sharing with the world. Because I wanted to chase all the pop, R&B, dance stuff. That's why I was looking up to people like Chris Brown. That's why I ended up actually doing a whole LP with him, 12 songs with him in his camp. And again, all of it was co-writes, but it was never like Asher solely writing his own music yet.
But there's not even a lot of that really even to this day, right? I mean, you look at any hit song and it's like 15 people on it.
That's it. And some people do that. Some people do that. And I do I like mixing it up. I like the idea of working with some collaborations, but I think it is also good for any artist to challenge yourself to try and write your own music and see where your own voice will lead you, because you just don't know until you really, you don't have the reliance of, oh, I got 10 other dudes that's going to finish the work for me in the room.
Right.
Which is fine, because you're going to, you'll still get a great product, but imagine what your soul can speak to a song when it's just you in a room and you got no one else to rely on. But again, I think it's a gifting. You have to kind of follow suit. Like, I think people on the outside were always saying, Asher, you have the ability, you're just not tapping into it. But I didn't believe in myself yet as a songwriter that I had it. And once I switched and I started seeing more songs I was writing, and then I just kind of got to a place where I just want to do this. Like, I want to see what kind of songs I would write all by myself. And then the more you play for family and friends, and then the public hears it, and then you start kind of seeing, and I think that helped me give me a little bit of boost. And then I guess, look, here we are today, you know, where the last album, I guess I can say I completely wrote everything myself, you know? So it was kind of, it's a journey. But sometimes it takes a minute to get to that place where you have the confidence to just say, I'm going to do it.
Do you remember the point when, or a song particular that you had that you're like, okay, I'm going to share this to the world, or like put it out on my social media or something that was just solely you? And was that
I do
terrifying experience at all? No?
It was a song called Sail On. And it was actually about my wife's passing of her brother in the Bosnian genocide war.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So if you ever look at it later, I did a beautiful video that was actually shot in Bosnia, and we brought in some of the best actors and directors there, and did a whole montage for him. And it was a more dedication, but I think that song, again, you know, if my kind of early 20s brain was like, yeah, chase this pop stuff, but then on the side, I'm writing a song like Sail On. Those are the type of songs that were saying, look where else you can go. And that song, I think, was one of the first real ones that I was like, okay, there's something here. I
didn't see that one on your Spotify. Maybe I missed it, but I just typed it in so I can find it later. Maybe I just didn't. I thought I
don't want our video to go out. Do you mind my battery? I can run to my backpack real quick and grab my battery for my.
Yeah. Take your time. Take your time. No, not at all. Not at all.
I don't want my thing to die, and then you're like, where'd he go? One sec.
No, don't apologize. I found it, by the way. It's on your Inner Warrior record. I'm done.
Oh yeah. Okay. I forgot that I did make it. I did put it on the album. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was just like, you know, topic wise, it's kind of even hard for early 21-year-old to like put yourself in the place to go that deep.
But again, I mean, how that must have been to take on a song like that, especially for kind of the first one that you're gonna, you know, write on your own. I mean, that's a big topic.
It is a big topic, and I think you're right. I think even my wife, I'll give her credit too, because I would write like poems on the side just for fun,
Hmm.
and I think she would be really surprised on the speed and the caliber of like the content I would write about. Um, because I was just like practicing and just doing whatever things, and she would just be like, "You wrote that 5 minutes ago," and I'm like, "Yeah, yeah," and she'd be like, she'd just read it, we'd read it back, and it's just, I think again, I just wish I wish I was a little bit more like I took it a little more serious, you know? But it's the journey, it's here we are, you know, it's no regret in any of it. It's just that, you know, sometimes you kind of miss out when maybe I was just maybe too bedazzled by everything else that I like that songwriter in me has just been like wanting to come out. So that's why I'm in a fun place in my life now where certain songs can just pour out of me and I'm like I feel like I'm in tune with where they need to go and you know, again, it's all that preparation meets timing stuff. It's like,
Hmm.
you know, when I could sit down at a piano, be able to play the chords that I was also limited with being able to play before, and then have melody and lyrics to back it. It's
Hmm.
kind of a fun place to be, to just be like hashing out beautiful songs. So,
Sure. I mean, you've put out a lot of music within the last year, 2. I mean, from you had Talk with God that came out what last
mhm.
year, and then this one came out this year. I mean, it sounds like you've. I mean,
Yeah,
if
yeah, and
you look at like
I'm
a
already building
global
up a catalog.
pandemic and the whole mix there to have that much
Yeah,
songs come out.
for sure. And yeah, I think I'm already building up a new catalog now. It's just like I feel like that part of me is not going away, and it's only getting better, and it's only again it just I feel like I'm growing just you know as an artist, and where you are mentally and spiritually and all these other elements that play into what you're doing. It just feels like it's kind of like a nice it kind of feels like a sweet spot. I feel like I'm in a good place.
That's awesome,
So
man. That's so awesome. Well, where are you as far as music went when like the world shut down in 2020? Were you working on
yeah,
the Talk with God record, or
yeah,
you where you had some? Oh, okay.
yeah,
How
I was
did that how did
compiling
that affect
that.
the song? Did it affect the songwriting or the songs in any way?
No, actually, no. It just gave me like again, I think a lot of people can look at that time period as either a positive or negative,
Hmm.
and I tried to just make it positive. I was like, all right, well, I'm forced now to be inside. I'm forced now to kind of like, and I think there's this quote, and I'm not quote doing it, but it's like, isolation is the best like preparation or something. It was like basically, it kind of hit with me. Was like sometimes isolation can kind of force you into going inside, more introspective,
Hmm.
and it allowed me to do that with my songwriting of just saying, you're forced now. You got no other option to like be distracted or do anything else. Like you got to do something to keep. And for me, it is like, that's like, I think it's part of how my DNA is like, I got to always be doing something. I can't really sit around too much. So for me, I feel like if I'm adding value, if I'm being creative, that's when I'm like really happy and like really in tune. So it just, I think it just allowed me to just to be creative. I was doing production, I was doing songwriting, and also too, you know, my wife was pregnant with the first child, so that was also a happy time.
Hmm.
No, it was just like it was for us. It was you know no complaints. You know,
Sure.
but
And did you talked about earlier, I mean, way early in the interview that the most recent album that you put out was done differently than the other ones, or you said it was a little,
you
is
mean
that what
this
you're
most
talking about?
this oh the most recent one that I
Yeah,
just put
yeah,
out?
yeah, yeah.
Yes, in the sense that I would say the production was way different than the other bodies of work that I've done. I guess a
Okay.
lot of the other stuff was like Talk with God was, you know, here's a track, write a great song over it,
Hmm.
or you know, so which is a different structure and a different way of doing it. And I think with this one, there was no production in the beginning. It was just me and Walter at a piano
Oh,
and
okay.
basically ping ponging his piano with my melodies. That's how we
Okay.
wrote pretty much all the songs on the whole album, and that's how they started.
Yeah, you
So
said you weren't going into it thinking like, I think earlier you said something along the lines of like it just kind of happened. Like you didn't come into it with, okay, I have all these ideas and we're going to write an album, right? It was like, it
yeah.
kind of just happened, or
No,
tell me
I
about that a
we
bit.
met him. I mean, I'll give you the story. Like
Yeah.
I Walter was I don't know where he actually was in his personal life. I won't go so much into that, but I think that he was just kind of, you know, I honestly don't know. I felt like I got lucky with the idea that I had a mutual friend that basically said, because we all lived in the same area, but we didn't have the same circle of friends.
Hmm.
And also, this was Malibu, and so I was like, yeah, no, I've never met Walter. And Lindy Benson actually is who made the introduction. I don't know. I'm just being full disclosure here. She's Kenny G's actually ex-wife. So his
Oh,
son
wow.
music. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
She's a close friend of me and my wife's, and so she was like, "You got to meet Walter. Walter's just super talented, whatever." I was like, "Sure, why not? Bring him to the house." We had a piano in the living room, I remember, and he came in, and we kind of, chatted up a little bit in the beginning, and it was just like, "Here it is. Sit down at the piano, and let's see what happens." So he sat down, and just immediately, like the way Walter plays is just like beyond, like everything in my heart like just dropped, because I was just like, this is the guy. This is the GOAT. Meaning, like, this is somebody I need to be working
You
with.
knew,
Like,
yeah, you knew you
yeah,
wanted
I
to
just
work
knew
with
right
him.
away, but it was just like, but also the way that he was so open in terms of when I would start singing, he would just play off of that. So if I changed up the melody at all, he would just find the right chords to go into this beautiful arrangement. So I kind of knew, and I think we both knew, and it's funny too. He told me later that that's the process that we wrote this album was exactly how he did all of his projects with Mariah Carey.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so he would literally do the same thing how he wrote with Mariah and how we wrote. And so we ended up, I ended up fixing actually up a home studio, believe it or not. So we didn't do any of this in a professional studio. This was at a home studio. But again, my home
Wow.
studio was still, I would still stay after many years of collecting, mics and
Gear.
things, gear. It's still high level, and that's a great thing about studios nowadays is you don't necessarily have to record it at a professional studio. You can do home studios. I mean, there's so many guys out now that are in hotel rooms putting up mics, and you're putting
Yeah,
out
some
giant
of
records
these
that we hear.
insane records, yeah, that are
Records
done
that you
like
would never
on
even
a
realize that
USB
were
mic.
filmed. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, no, but it was a great home studio. We built it up just how he liked it too. He liked certain gear that he liked to work off of. So I kind of like, all right, Walter, what do you need to make this happen? And the next thing you know, we're just for, man, maybe 4 to 6 months, we would just literally write like that every day. He'd get on the piano, I'd sing. We'd probably do this 4 to 6 hours, a couple days a week for that long. And that was just
Wow.
like how we did it. And so at the end, obviously, you can imagine we had so much material, but we really had to kind of narrow it down to our favorites. And so how it ended up happening was we only had arrangements. This was right before a couple summers ago, before the summer that I was going to be leaving with my family. And I just like, we kind of gotten all this material, but again, I imagine having like a 7-minute arrangement of just piano and nothing there. That's what
Mhm.
we, so we were kind of
Oh,
building,
wow. Okay.
like, when you talk about building a home, you're talking about, that was our foundation. That was that I had to build on that. So all I had was these beautiful arrangements that had no lyrics, no, kind of a rough melodies that I liked, but I had to really fine tune them. And I said, Walter, look, I'm going away with my family for the summer. I'm going to take my favorite 12 or whatever, and I'm going to write the songs to it. And I don't think he actually believed me. I truly thought, I think he thought I was BSing him, and I was just going
Right.
to
He's
bugger
like,
off.
"Oh, he's
And,
never gonna come back with these."
or I just think he thought I was literally going to go on a summer vacation and drink margaritas and not even think about it.
Sure.
But I took it on. I really did. I think also the fact that working with Walter, I wanted to level up my game. I wanted to prove to him, myself, that like I have it in me, that this is game time. I really felt like
Mhm.
I was preparing for like something really big. And I did. When I got to, it was Croatia. We went to Croatia, and I turned off my phone for 3 months. I
Wow.
jumped in the water every day. I read the Old Testament, the whole thing,
Oh my
uh,
gosh.
and I just went to that place. I literally, like, I wanted to just be a channel, and again, not to go all guru with it, but I truly felt like that's what I needed for myself to break through and not be distracted, and just
Mhm.
go to a deep place that I've never been before. And it was one of the best experiences I've ever had in terms of songwriting, because I just like felt like I was connecting every day on something so much above me that I can't even know how to describe it. But I just had signs and all these things that it was just such a magical experience. So I highly recommend for people like that. It worked for me. I don't know if it'll work for others, but it definitely just allowed me to go there. And then, so yeah, funny enough, when I was like chipping through each song and just going through the process. I didn't actually talk to Walter at all through this whole process. So he didn't, not an email or text, nothing. He didn't know I was even, so I, I got back 3 months later and I kind of said, Walter, I'm back. I want to play you what I did, and I remember actually sitting him down and I think it was like Story of the Bird was one of the first songs I played him. And I
Mhm.
just remember he just had tears just rolling down his cheek.
Wow.
And he was just like, Asher, I cannot believe you did this. And he was just like so impressed with the lyrics and the stories. And so then that kind of got us into the next phase of production where we really started bringing on some of the best players, gospel, some of the best background singers, guitar guys, uh, other guys to add on some production layers. And, Walter came in and did his extra stuff. And so it was really a fun process just from like I said, from foundation to kind of what you hear now at the finished product.
Mhm.
Really that type of, and I think it was probably my favorite style of writing songs just from start to finish. There was no
Mhm.
rush in, like, let's say 24 hours having to bang out a track, bang out a song. And then, so, cause I feel like some of the songs I did that way, I look back now and I don't know, I don't feel as attached to them. But I feel like with this song, I've played them a million times and it never gets old when I listen to them. So I hope that timeless aspect will continue on for the next number of years and it can still feel like that type of album.
Yeah. Was there a song on there like that you were or like a moment on the record that you were kind of like you're like, should I like is this too vulnerable of something to write? Like, and did you have any of
No, to
that?
be honest, I'm glad I never felt that because I was like, if anything, pro not that I went too vulnerable, but I so shied away from what may have been expected from me, or and I tell people this, like, I was never chasing like a trend or
Mhm.
a style to fit to somebody, like, oh, I'm writing this song so somebody else will like it. I
Right.
was truly writing from the heart of like my best strengths, Walter's best strengths, and we're coming together creating these babies. And so for me, it was just more like dig as deep as you can. Doesn't matter what you write about, just
Mhm.
write about something that means something to you.
That's
And
amazing.
so that's
Yeah.
kind of, yeah, that's really, and that's why Try Me was like, okay, I'm gonna go a little soulful on this song, or this song has a little more R&B flair, or this one has a little more theatrics. And so I was kind of not really sticking to a script per se, but just more
Mhm.
like, what do I feel are the best songs that I feel like people resonate with? So yeah, and I get that through the fans that come out and say like how much different songs have connected with them. Like that's
Mhm.
like the best thing that any artist could hear is just like how each song has a different emotional attachment to different people. So
Yeah.
yeah,
That's incredible. And you did like there's a whole another element to the song and the album too with this like XR like live reality concert thing. Like
yeah.
talk about that because this is like so wild.
Yeah, and I guess yeah, that was also too. I feel like the album open up like where I kind of still feel like like when somebody has wings to fly, like this, for whatever reason, this project has given me so many wings and so many different facets. I'm, even new stuff that I'm working on, but it's crazy how I don't know. I feel like I had directed the last, I don't know, like 7 or 8 of my music videos. That
Mhm.
was actually one thing Chris actually told me. One good advice I can even impart to somebody was like when we did our video for Memory, he pulled me aside. He's like, Ash, you should direct your own stuff. And I had never ever thought about directing my own visuals before he had even brought it to my attention. So because maybe I saw him do it with some of his videos, I was like, all right, yeah. And so I started messing around with concepts and stuff. And so for me, it was kind of exploration to kind of try it. But music videos are great because visuals are always a great way to tell any story, as one would say.
Mhm.
Right? Movies, it's just such a great art form to share something that really gets into people's mind, body, everything. So um, I know that shooting traditional ways of music video is great and amazing. And I guess for me, my whimsical side or whatever it is felt like I wanted to push the boundary a little bit. So I had seen a couple XR productions with, I think it was Katy Perry did something for American Idol. I think
Mhm.
Halsey did something on Ellen. And then there was this one other kid, and he was some French rapper. He did something. And I saw those three, and I was just like, man, there's something really cool in storytelling in the way that they're doing it and the way it's going with the music that they're doing. And I just was like, like, as a kid, like why does some kid, look at a superhero and they're like so attracted to like wanting to be that or whatever. For me, seeing this new technology, I felt like a little kid. I was like, whoa, like I gotta do that. I don't know what it
Right.
is, I don't know how to do it, but I'm in. So like I said, it was really like one of those things where I had no experience. I mean, I did my directing, but I didn't really know what was needed for something like this. So I just had to get like I started doing my homework, and I mean, I remember in the beginning I was like, what am I looking for? Who do I need to hire? And really, I'll give you the short end of it. Is like I basically had to find graphic artists that specialized in Unreal Engine. This is where it's going to get a little geeky, but
Okay.
Unreal Engine is like Fortnite, for instance, is made in Unreal Engine, or like certain
Okay.
things like video game software. It's a video games very specific software to make universes for video games. That's kind
Okay.
of in a nutshell
Yeah,
what
yeah,
it
I
is.
see what you're saying.
And if you
Okay. Yeah,
go to
yeah.
like, if you go to like how people will make concept boards and concepts for like characters and things like that. They can also make that in Unreal. But there's a
Mhm.
whole world where these artists make these visuals using this technology.
It's
And
so
so
like it just like it's like all the metaverse stuff and
yeah,
like
it is
the
a little bit
yeah.
of the metaverse. It is a little bit of that. And even when I was tell people XR, they don't even know what XR is. Like XR is basically extended reality, where it's
Mhm.
just basically pushing the front of like expanding your worlds a little bit. And so like, for instance, like when you see a production that's done in green screen,
Mhm.
everything's done in post. So all these actors are walking around with a green screen behind them and they don't know what world's behind them or what's going to be implemented later, months later, but they have to pretend like it is.
Right.
Beauty about XR is it's all done real time. So all that pre-work of building those worlds is done before the shoot day, so that on the shoot day you get to interact with those environments.
Oh, wow. Okay, now I understand what you're saying. Yeah, sure, sure, sure. Okay.
So like when there's a butterfly that's maybe put in post, now I'm seeing that
You can
butterfly.
see the butterfly.
I'm interacting with that butterfly. You know what I mean? Or what's on the floor? I built that floor. Like, oh, I remember constructing that stone and that grassy moss and that
That's so
rainbow.
wild.
So it's really cool because that stage is like so high level that it's under you and it's around you, but it can
Mhm.
also be in front of you. It's crazy. It's mind
That
blowing.
is so
Yeah, but
crazy.
it's also like, dude, it was just so like even talking about it now is like I remember those couple shoot days I had was like one of the most exciting, thrilling things to do was to build it and all that time that went into it to then those shoot days of actually like I just was like in a kid in candy store. I just was like completely awesome and so over the top. But yeah, I think the whole journey was really amazing. Finding these guys. I'll be honest too. I thought I was gonna have to have a team of like all these guys working for months.
Mhm.
Turns out I thought that's what I needed, and I found one golden gem. And his name's David Jurek. I found him in Czech Republic. Super talented kid, wizard of the arts, and I ended up basically just me and him. We constructed these worlds together. I would send him like you know, so many documents and pictures and like I want it to look like this and da 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 da. And then he'd kind of like come back and again, kind of like what me and Walter did. It was just like we were pinging ponging and back and forth building these universes. So really what I kind of did a similar thing, not to go back, but with Inner Warrior album, I did
Mhm.
a short film called Book of Love, where
Mhm.
I kind of built some scenes out and some sets, and I kind of interwoven a couple songs together. So I kind of did a similar approach with this one, where I took 4 songs. I was really ambitious in the beginning. I was gonna do the full album. I was gonna do all 8. I was gonna do visuals for each song, but it turned out to be just such a big feat that I couldn't do it. So I took 4 songs, focused on those, and I built a world where it would kind of feel like you're going on this journey with me as the artist, whatever, and we're weaving through these worlds together.
Mhm.
And that's kind of really what I wanted to go for. And so that's why each one is kind of, different, but still, oh, I can see it kind of making sense. So and I haven't even, put out the full thing yet, so I guess people don't have a lot to go off of, but yet
Right.
chapters I put out. But yeah, that whole thing was just such an amazing experience from start to finish. I can't speak enough on just getting to work with something so cutting edge that it was just like you can. Yeah, I just feel like this art form is going to be a new way that artists of today's generation are going to be able to tell their stories in a very uniquely different way.
Hmm. I
That's
know
what
it's wild to think like, yeah, green screen even then was like, whoa, like it's crazy. You could stand in front of a screen and then throw whatever you want behind you,
right.
right?
That even that
And
concept is
yeah, now it's just like you could do that on the Zoom, like, software, which is wild. And now it's all like you're immersed in it all. Like
that's it.
you're
Great
fully,
word to use, immersed. You're immersed
yeah,
in.
it's crazy. It's so
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
Um, wow. Yeah. That's so you have a few, like I've seen chapter one and you have a few chapters coming out. You said, do you know how many
Yeah,
you're
so
going to
just
do?
four chapters altogether,
Okay.
4 songs. The first and last chapter kind of have a little bit of an opener and a closer, just to kind of give it a little bit more, again, through that whole windows of time, like
Right.
these windows, these portals that kind of take me on these different things. So, yeah, I guess it just allowed me to go where I wanted with these songs. Like, so if
Hmm.
anyone, like, I would give encouragement to any artist, right? If you have a song you love and you could sit down, because sometimes, like I said, music videos can limit you of
Hmm.
where you can go with your story. Because sometimes you can say, like, I just want to be on the clouds and I want to be, going, to Mars, like all these things. And like you can do all of that and then some and more, so it's like really whatever your mind is dreaming of, you can do that. So I just encourage people to, if it's something that interests them, to go down that route, because it really was just such a unique experience that made it just so much more like, I don't know, I even feel like today too, with a lot of artists that go on tour, not that they all need these big visuals, but it's just the artist nowadays singing to their songs. And
Hmm.
I do think the visual aspect can bring people into your worlds deeper than just seeing the artist up on a big stage in front of thousands of people. So, it's just like I feel like even the new way of like how concerts will even be seen in the future could be done with these XR screens behind them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Almost
like,
for me, like growing up on Broadway and doing these productions was maybe why I was loving it, because it does feel like it just feels like a Broadway production on steroids. It just feels like everything is just heightened and turned up so high. Now again, I know these things can be costly now, and maybe down the line, the technology will come around to a place where it's easy to, artists can take that. So I don't know where it's going to go. I just know that it's like, it's a booming thing where people are like, they're plopping up all over the world, these XR
mhm.
studios. And a lot of movies are taking advantage of this technology. And I
Probably
think
saves them money in the long run, right? I mean,
it
going
does.
through and
I think for
keying out everything
filming,
and
you save money. I'll be honest, with music right now, you might be
probably spending a bit more.
spending more than you want to spend.
Right.
I do think the art form itself is definitely something of the future. That's one thing I can bet. I just feel really
Oh
strong.
yeah.
So
That's
where
so
it's gonna go,
awesome.
I don't know, but it's, man, it's a blast. It's a
That's
blast.
so cool. So cool. Well, thank you so much, Asher, for doing this, man. I've really appreciated it.
Yeah,
And
man.
you've
Thanks
been
for
so
wanting
great.
to get to know about it, and I'm happy to share. And I love talking about it. So I appreciate you opening up my story a little bit.
Oh yeah, I love what you're doing. I know you've probably, yeah, I think you've answered this question 2 or 3 times during the podcast, but I'm going to ask it anyway. If you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Yeah, exactly. But some of the stuff I've said, I just think, I think the one of the biggest crutches that of all people, and I can say it for myself, was the lack of belief in oneself. And I know that it's been said, but I truly do believe that half of the battle is our perception and our belief in ourselves that inhibit us and waste time. So if you can just cut out all the naysayers and cut out people that are just not believers in you, there's no other you on this earth. And so we're all uniquely individual, and we all have a unique path, and we all have unique talents. And find things that interest you, find things that make you excited, that give you butterflies, and that make you want to drive and be a better person. And I feel like whatever art form that is, if you want to be a chef, if you want to be a this or that, or a teacher, whatever, like, it doesn't just have to be in music and acting and film. It can be in all facets of life. I just think that you have to follow that meter, that compass in you that is telling you what is your gifting, what do you love. And now here's the thing: the expectation doesn't have to be in the first 24 hours. You don't have to be the best at it right away. Give yourself the time, but commit to something, and you will watch. You'll see yourself in a year's time or 2 years' time. You'll see how much you've grown, and you'll see how much you're just going to get better and better. So that's the one thing I can say to all artists is just follow your meter, because I can't say what's good for somebody else. They are the only true ones to know where they need to go. And that's the hardest part, is just finding something that interests you enough and just follow that. And you have no idea where that path is going to lead you, because it might lead you to something. Maybe in the beginning it's like close enough, and then you follow that, and then it's like bam, you land in something that you just know, this is for me, this is the right thing, and then you won't have those those questions or doubts. So that's all I can say is just follow your passions and go for them.